Was there ever anyone better for so many years at getting 60 seconds of gold out of athletes? Meet one of the retiring heroes of Hockey Night in Canada next on Brio TV, the podcast. Hi there, thanks for joining me. I'm your host, Bill Brio. For the past 7 years on this podcast and over 40 years in print, I've been interviewing the folks who bring us the shows we love on TV. On this episode, I talk with a veteran sports reporter and host who, in my opinion, has been better on his feet and in the moment than anybody else in a rink or on a field. I'm talking, of course, about Scott Oake, who announced his retirement from Sportsnet and Hockey Night in Canada at the end of the NHL season. Correction, he reluctantly announced because he never wanted any fuss made about his departure. He just wanted to go quietly to ghost. Sportsnet insisted a fuss be made, so he has squirmed through several interviews, including this one with me. I just wanted to thank him for all the great TV moments, and also, as someone else who has milked this talking to famous people thing for so many decades, how can I find the dignified exit ramp? Scott offers good advice, talks about that interview in the stands with Snoop Dogg, names the sportscaster colleagues who influenced him the most, and most importantly, puts the spotlight on the cause that is most important to him now, the Bruce and Ann Oake Memorial Foundation, one he has established in his son and late wife's name in Winnipeg. It's a wonderful cause, one born out of sorrow, but what a pivot towards helping others. Truly an inspiring undertaking. So, helmet on and get ready to lace them up with Scott Oake. Okay, here we are. My pleasure to welcome Scott Oake. Has been a fixture on Hockey Night in Canada, all across sports, so many different Olympics, everything. I've been a fan for many years. So, Scott, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for doing this today.
My pleasure, Bill. I'm glad to be able to spend some time with you.
I appreciate it. So, I was telling some friends, and I'm 68, about to turn 69. So my buddies, we've all been watching Hockey Night in Canada and everything else you've been doing. And they were just, wow, Scott Oake, yes, the guy. There's no one better on at ice level, in the stands, representing, getting those questions on your feet. That's what I really I think is remarkable, Scott. I mean, you I guess take for granted your talent there, but my goodness, it's hard when you're in the moment like that, and you seem to have really excelled at that your entire career. So, congrats to you.
Well, very nice of you to say, Bill. I've often said to people I've lived a good part of my broadcasting life in 30-second to 1 minute increments, and so I guess you have to be ready. But those interviews usually are very difficult because if the ones you're referring to usually involve a player walking off the ice and coming to talk to you, and they end up, to a large extent, being cliches, get pucks deep, play our game, et cetera, right. Because the player just wants to really, most occasions, to get into the room, be with his teammates, and prepare for the next period. Post-game interviews can be different because the game is done. But what I really enjoyed for the better part of my career on Hockey Night was doing the after-hours show, because that was more long-form discussion that allowed us to get to know a player and find out what he was all about. And I think those shows usually succeeded on the level that people would come away from them thinking, wow, that was interesting. I didn't know that about the guy. And so I've really enjoyed After Hours, but basically enjoyed my entire career, obviously.
And on After Hours, when you have those longer form interviews, I think the players must appreciate that you come ready to play. There's a playfulness to what you bring to it, and that sort of allows them to, open up a bit and have a little fun too, right?
Well, the After Hours concept, I think, is a good one because we have just finished 6.5 hours of hard hockey talk.
Wow.
And so on after hours, we try to get away from pucks deep and traffic, pucks on net with traffic mixed in, play our game, etc. Get away from all of that as soon as possible and get into a discussion about the guy's life and what got him to the NHL and what's allowing him to succeed, etc. Those shows have always involved a fair amount of research. So, we know enough about the guy to be able to, lead him into discussions about certain, things that have happened in his life to help shape his life, etc. So I would probably spend, leading up to one of those shows in a given week, a couple of hours, maybe 3 hours researching stuff, trying to figure out different parts of the guy's life that people would find interesting. Yeah. And generally, I think the show's succeeded.
For sure. And who has really surprised you? I mean, I'm putting you on the spot, such a career, but there must be a few names that you sat down to talk to and you came away thinking, wow, what a life, that you just learned a lot about the person apart from hockey. Were there some individuals that were really open about that?
I like the way that the show ended this year. I thought we ended on a pretty good run with Brandon Montour in Seattle, as he talked about his Indigenous heritage, and Devin Cooley was a captivating guest, the goaltender from Calgary. Trevor Linden in Vancouver. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, I think, was our last guest. John Cooper, the coach of the Tampa Bay Lightning, told a lot of great stories about his family and his father, etc., who just had passed away just a couple of weeks before. Mm-hmm. So we were on a good run to finish, as I say. But overall, I always felt that we learned something about each of the guests that we had on that program. But the guest whose name has stuck with me the most over the years was Brian McGrattan in Calgary. He played for the Flames, as you probably know. But when we had him on the air, he was working as a development coach for the Flames. Basically, his responsibility was to be an advisor to younger players to make sure that they had what they needed to stay on the straight and narrow. And Brian was all about recovery. He had been in recovery at that point, I think, for 7 or 8 years. Big advocate for sobriety. And when we finished a couple of those shows with him, the next couple of days, there were reams of texts and phone calls from people wanting to know, how can I get a hold of Brian McGrattan? Because he'd been so inspiring. So because of the path our family took because of addiction and substance abuse, as you probably know, lost our firstborn son, Bruce, in 2011 to an accidental overdose. Those shows really resonated with me, and because they had a message, and I thought they were very impactful.
Yeah, no kidding. And you would have brought such having that terrible experience in your own family obviously gave you empathy and other, or ways to talk to people who are suffering through similar things that would have been very helpful, I'm sure, but hard. Scott, did you ever imagine when you were starting your career, it seems to be athletes now, you would never be able to talk about alcoholism or sobriety 40, 30 years ago, I don't think. Is that a cliche, or are things different now?
No, I think you're right, Bill. Look, it's just the way society has evolved. We become much more adept at talking about mental health. And lately we have been able, I think, certainly through our work at the foundation, the Bruce Nanoke Memorial Foundation, we've always considered part of our mission to be to help eliminate, erase, or at least at the very least lessen the stigma that's attached to addiction and substance abuse. It is not a moral failing. It is a disease, and we need to approach it as such. And I think society in general has become better at that discussion. People are more open about it now, to the extent that some people are proud of a lot of people are proud of their recovery and should consider it to be, a badge of honor. So the discussion itself is not as hard to have as it was, just as you say, when I would have been starting in this business. It's a lot easier now.
Hey, don't head for the concession stands. We'll be right back with Scott Oake in just a moment. Well, it's time once again to speak with Emily Gagne at Hollywood Suite. Emily, what do you got for us this month?
It's all about books on film this month, Bill.
Wait a minute, Emily. You mean that some of these films are based on books?
You are right.
Oh,
you
my
heard
goodness.
that right.
Wow.
Yeah, we're talking, Fight Club, Pride and Prejudice, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, It, The Wiz, Cape Fear, the 90s one.
Emily, if you're reading a book called Fight Club, well, what is it? Just go, and then you hit him with the left, and then hit him with the right for like 800 pages?
Well, you'll just have to watch to find out, won't
All
you?
right, we'll check it out. What's your favorite all-time film based on a book?
I don't think you can beat To Kill a Mockingbird.
Great choice. Gregory Peck, classic, very good. I think I like The Little Engine That Could, which was one of those little books you got when you were 4. I don't think that's a film, though, Emily.
I was going to say, what film is that, Bill?
It's probably not a film. Anyway, you've got real films based on books at Hollywood Suite. How much does it cost?
Just $6 a month most
Oh,
places.
that's crazy. You can't even buy a book for that.
No, you can't. I actually was at a bookstore yesterday and it cost me more than $6.
See? Okay, Hollywood Suite, $6, 100% Canadian. Emily, thanks again.
Thanks, Bill.
And we're back with retiring Hockey Night in Canada After Hours host, Scott Oake. When did you first realize that you had this knack, when you were talking to athletes that, you could talk about just about anything and draw some stuff from them? It's a big learning curve, I would think, but you seem to always have that ability.
I don't know if there was a specific time. I think it's just the way that the show After Hours evolved. We pretty quickly learned that athletes were much more interested in that long form interview, interested in talking about certain parts of their lives than they were about the game itself. So it just sort of happened that way. And that, I guess, became the benchmark of the show. People would look for, some people I think would look forward to After Hours because they knew that it was going to be on that level, on a personal level, would be entertaining. And we always endeavored to make it that and usually succeeded.
It's sort of I think a cliche. I think a lot of hockey fans anyway think hockey players are the best interviews. Boy, they'll talk about anything. But is there a difference between, you've talked to obviously CFL football players and swimmer athletes in the Olympics. Are people just people, or do different sports maybe have athletes that are more fun to interview?
I think you described it accurately in your question. People are people, and just find a way to reach them and connect with them and get them to talk, and you'll be fine. So that was always what I tried to do in the program After Hours, or any interview that I did, whether it was with a CFL player or anybody that I encountered that I had to interview. Not that difficult, I don't think, but I guess the challenge for anybody on TV or in any part of the media is to make it look like it's easy and not difficult.
Well, you did that, but I think it would be tricky. I mean, I'm thinking in the short ones, when you're on the ice, it's the Stanley Cup that's just been awarded, and you're literally, there's confetti flying down, and you're there talking to somebody in the heat of that moment. And there's probably somebody in your ear saying, ask a third question, or, a lot of other distractions. How do you keep your head and find a way to get to the athletes in situations like that?
Well, in those situations, and you're referring to the on-ice celebration, the Stanley Cup, when players are out there hoisting the cup and their families are with them, what I always did, and no one does a better job at this currently than Kyle Bukauskas. He's sort of succeeded me in doing that job. He's great at it. But what I always did, and Kyle does too, is I would be armed with a lot of information about where the player came from, who helped get him there, et cetera, so that if I needed to, I could pull out a fact that would get the guy to respond in a whole different way from just, I'm so happy to have won the cup.
Right.
And that would take a lot of research leading up to the potentially final game, but it usually worked.
Yeah, there's nothing like the temptation is just to say, how do you feel right now? Right. Mm-hmm. And that's why I think viewers really appreciate that you bring those different points of view. Also,
well, you need it more. You certainly need more than how do you feel?
Right.
And that's not that's an overused question, but it's not a stupid question.
No.
Just, how do you feel is the essence of what you're trying to get the guy to talk about.
Yeah.
I would recommend, though, for any young broadcasters out there, don't ask that repetitively. Find a different way to phrase it. There are many ways that you can, but it's not necessarily a throwaway or a stupid question.
The other thing I think is great, you were always seemed ready to do shtick, like there was a lot of fun in some of the stuff you did. Of course, talking to Snoop Dogg, you did the research, you knew to call him nephew or whatever. You had the lingo down, which he seemed to really love.
I could say, Bill, that I did the research, but I'll just tell you the quick story behind that interview. It was in 2007, the Ottawa-Anaheim Stanley Cup final. And the producer said to me that Snoop is coming to the game tonight. I knew who he was, but, as I have enough, pop culture info in my head that I knew who Snoop Dogg was, but I didn't have a clue as to what I would say to him. So I called my son, Darcy. And if I had told Darcy that I was going to be talking to Jesus Christ reincarnate, it wouldn't have been as impressive for him, I don't think. So I said, tell me what to say. And he said, okay, write this down. And I wrote it down, and he said, I'm with the dog father, D-O-D, double jizzy, big ups on this crunk planet, what's crackalating nephew? And he said, okay, read that back to me. And I read it back to him, and he said, well, you can't say it that way. And he'll be mad if you say it that way. So I got in front of the mirror and I gave it some flair and some pizzazz. I remember a guy wrote in an American newspaper the next day, because this thing went viral pretty quickly. Yeah. A guy wrote, I sounded like a pathetic old man who'd been in front of the mirror for an hour trying to rehearse what he was going to say to Snoop Dogg. And I took offense to that, because I was actually in front of the mirror, not for an hour, but 2 hours practicing it. And I couldn't have cared what else was going on in the game that night. I just had to get this right. And so I went over and sat beside him, and we were going to do this interview coming out of a commercial break. And so there was about 3 or 4 minutes to kill before we actually went on the air. He was a charming guy. We had a lovely conversation, talked about his upcoming tour, and actually said you should come to one of the shows, whatever. And
that's fantastic.
Anyway, I was relaxed enough that when it was time to actually do it, I thought, okay, I'm going to try it. Because previous to that, I was thinking, I better not. He might be insulted if I try this. And anyway, I did it. I took a chance, and it came out like... I'm with the dog father, D-O-D, double jizzy, big ups on this crunk planet. What's crackalating, nephew? And there was a brief glint in his eyes, and I thought, oh my God, he's gonna walk away, or he's gonna get mad. And he said, I'm doing good, baby, and I love the way you said that.
Yeah.
And basically, I went, thank you, Jesus, at that point. And everything went fine after that. So I can tell you this, Bill, the 2 things for which I have received the most publicity in my entire career of 52 or 53 years. I struggle with that math sometimes, but I think it's been about 53. The 2 things for which I have received the most publicity is my interview with Snoop Dogg and my retirement. So what does that say about my career?
Well, that's it. It accomplishes it all. Yeah, it's been a great career. And so that's stretching back to the 70s. My God, that's incredible. More with Scott Oake in a minute. May is set to be an adrenaline-fueled month on Paramount+. The excitement begins on May 15th with the global debut of Dutton Ranch. The Yellowstone sequel features fan favorites Beth and Rip as they gamble on a new life in South Texas. The momentum continues on May 21st with the return of SkyMed as Season 4 takes flight in the unforgiving Canadian North. This month also features the historical thriller Nuremberg, debuting May 6th. Sports fans have a front row seat on May 10 for live Zuffa boxing. From the gritty law enforcement of marshals, with the season finale streaming May 25th, to the weekly mysteries of From and the streaming debut of Bob Hart's Abishola on May 15th, Paramount Plus is delivering a powerhouse lineup of premium entertainment from start to finish. And we're back. Talk just a bit about some of your colleagues, Ron MacLean. I mean, I guess, obviously you've been with Hockey Night in Canada, I believe, since the mid-'80s, right? So a lot of colleagues there. What did you learn from them over the years? Who would you maybe single out?
Well, the first guy that I would say was a profound and positive influence in my career would be the late, great Don Whitman. I came to Winnipeg at Christmas of 1975 to replace Don in the local sports because he was going to work full-time for the network. And I became a good friend of Don's. He taught me the value of preparation. I would watch Don get ready for a network broadcast, and Don always felt that it was better to have too much information than not enough. Right. And so he would enter a broadcast with reams and reams of info, and 75% of it might not get on the air, but at least he was ready. So I took that from Don. Delivery, his cadence, all of that. It was never wise for a broadcaster to try to imitate somebody else, but I always appreciated how crisp Don was in his delivery. So I learned many, many things from Don. And then fast forward to Ron MacLean. Ron is a brilliant broadcaster. Ron can take you anywhere on a 10 count and make it, the whole show could be falling apart. And it could say, okay, here's what we're going to do now. He'd hear this from his producer, and he would make a smooth transition and get you somewhere else on a 10 count and make it look like the show was supposed to go that way all along. Whereas many of the rest of us, me included, would go, what do we do now? We would not freeze, but we might stumble and stammer. Ron is just on a different level than a lot, if not most other people in this business. So yeah, he's been great to work with. And I'd also say this about Ron. He's a very compassionate soul. He's been solidly in the corner of the Bruce and Ann Oake Memorial Foundation since we started it. Comes to Winnipeg every year to MC our gala and makes it a special event. And in fact, when my wife passed away, we had 3 or 4 days notice to get her service organized. And I called Ron and I said, can you come and do it? And he said, no problem. And he was there in a heartbeat. So been very lucky to be associated with someone like him, and the entire Hockey Night in Canada crew and all the people I worked with at CBC Sports before that have been very supportive of me, and as I often say, put up with my nonsense, and that's the reason that I've been able to last as long as I have.
Well, I think there have been a few other reasons, but let's talk a bit about the foundation, the Bruce and Ann Oake Fund. I think you're involved right this minute, involved in some aspect of that. How do people contribute? And condolences on the loss of your wife. I know it's been a couple of years now, Scott, but you guys are together a long time. And that's, got a great partner means everything. So sorry for your loss there. And but talk a bit about the foundation.
Well, so Ann and I were married for 41 years, and the joke was always that it lasted because I was only around for 20 of them. But
that's some truth in jest there, I think. Probably.
Well, absence makes the heart grow fonder. Anne was a beautiful woman who basically functioned for a large part of our marriage as a single parent. I could have been away anywhere. It could have been on the 9-week run covering the Stanley Cup playoffs or some far-off corner of the world covering the Olympics and been gone for 8 weeks for that. She never once complained. She just went about the business of running the house and raising the kids. When we lost Bruce in 2011, our goal became to bring the concept of long-term treatment at no cost to Winnipeg and to Manitoba. We didn't have a hot clue as to how we'd get started, but we started speaking in public, telling Bruce's story. We soon had a lot of public support behind us, so we raised, I think, $15 million in a couple of years to get the Bruce Oake Recovery Center built. I'm sitting here right now. It's a gorgeous 43,000 square foot facility that offers men a chance to reclaim their lives from addiction and substance abuse. 50-bed facility, always full. Has a waiting list of 300, an active list of about 85. Those are the guys who call every day to keep their place in line. The guys that if you called them at 2 o'clock, they'd be here at 4 o'clock to check in so they could have their turn at the 16-week in residence program that's run here. And we always pledged that when the Bruce Oake Recovery Center was up and running with successful results and sustainable funding, we would turn our attention to women, and that will be the Ann Oake Family Recovery Center in memory of Ann, who passed away in September of 21. And construction on the Ann Oake Family Recovery Center begins at the end of this month, actually. It'll be about a 65,000 square foot facility in the south end of Winnipeg where women can have their children with them as they get healthy again. The fact is, a lot of women are reluctant to reach out for help for fear of losing their kids to the system. And so we'll fix that problem at Ann Oake in that the kids can be with their moms as they get back to health. So we're very excited about both. Bill, I would tell you, and I say this frequently, that addiction or substance abuse is the single greatest peacetime problem our city, your city, our province, our country has ever faced. We are losing 20 to 21 Canadians a day to overdose deaths and 40 to 45 a day to alcohol-related deaths. So we need to do better, and I'm proud to say that the Bruce Oake Recovery Center and the Ann Oake Family Recovery Center, soon to be, are on the front lines of the battle.
That's fantastic. It must mean an awful lot to the city of Winnipeg, any city. I'm in Orangeville, Ontario, and there's problems everywhere. But my God, to have that, a place people can walk into like that, and to focus on women and families is certainly a huge advantage. So congratulations on channeling all those efforts in those ways. And before I let you go, I just wanted to ask one thing I wanted to ask. I've been doing this a long time, covering television, or writing mainly for newspapers and magazines and things, and trying to wind things down. So how do you know when to do this, Scott? Like, you seem to be a good example for now's the time. I know you wanted to sneak out of town, but when do you know it's time to stop doing something you probably loved to do, but it's time to move on to something else?
The job I've always loved, but I guess I would say that the challenge became getting there. So my week would go like this. It would be, let's say, start with Monday. Monday was always good because I didn't have to worry much about anything. Could relax. Tuesday, play hockey with my buddies, but start worrying about who we're going to have on the air that weekend. By Wednesday, meetings, research, etc. By Thursday, the guy that we were hoping to have is canceled. We got to find somebody else. Friday, go to the airport, fly to wherever the game is. And that became my week. If I could not have to travel, I could have done this job forever, I guess. But and I don't want to complain about travel. You get no sympathy from the public over that, right? That's part of the job. But
I know what you mean, Scott. It's a hassle,
But it became an ordeal after a while. I've had more travel screw-ups in the last 2 years than I had in the previous 30. Just the way it is. Yeah. Nobody's fault, just the way things have evolved. Yep. And I just, after a while, started to feel like, I have my health. My insurance agent has a great expression. He says, when you turn 70, you can say 70 is the new 60. And a lot of people do, because people are taking better care of themselves these days. They're living longer. But when you turn 80, you are 80, and there's no way out of it.
Yeah.
And this summer, I will be 7 years away from 80, and I don't want to spend those 7 years going to the airport. And what I want to spend them doing is with my grandchildren. I have two beautiful grandchildren, nice. August and Harlan. Wow. I want to spend more time with them, and I need to spend more time at the foundation. And I have nothing to do with running either recovery center. I want to make that clear to everybody, because that's way outside my wheelhouse. I just focus on fundraising, etc., partnerships, that sort of thing. And that's going to certainly feel like a full-time job. I essentially will be stepping into a full-time job, except one for which I'm not getting paid, and I'm fine with that. Yeah. But short answer to your question, age, etc., I just knew it was time.
Yeah, it can be shocking how busy you get once you retire, right? That's the scary part. I find a bit. Yeah. But I talked to an actor, Peter Coyote. He does a lot of narrations for the
yes,
kinds of things. And I remember he was in his 70s, and he was saying, I was asking about narrating for Ken Burns things, and he says, "Well, this is my last active decade." I thought, whoa, when you think of it in those terms, it's a bit sobering, but I guess he's kind of right. He had a point. He knew exactly where he was and how long he was going to do something like that. So it sort of stuck with me.
You don't have to succumb to your age, obviously. And I'm very fortunate. And then I have my health. But I didn't want to get to the point where, suddenly I don't have it. And sorry that I didn't do some of the things, in particular my grandchildren and work at the foundation that I could have done when I was at full health. And I'm not, thinking about it's suddenly going to end or I'm going to be really sick one day. But those are things you have to consider as you get older, I guess.
Absolutely. I've got grandchildren now, another on the way, and that makes a difference. You're still playing hockey?
I play twice a week at River Heights Arena with a lot of guys who played pro, semi-pro, and I'm the worst guy out there. But they let me play because I collect the money and bring the beer.
I'm envious. I gave up after COVID, and then the last game was like March of 2020, and my feet just weren't into it anymore. But it's the greatest game, isn't it, Scott? Like to play.
Oh, it is. And you get out there, Bill, and you think you're flying, and wind resistance makes you think like, man, I'm going at lightning speed here. And then one day, one of our most recent games, we only quit about a month ago or maybe 3 weeks ago, but for the season. But someone happened to have their camera going on their phone, and they got a shot of me, and he sent it to me, and I wanted to quit. I wanted to take my equipment to the Brady landfill site and dump it in there. My God, it's just, I think that's the thing that we all suffer from when we play, is that we all think we're so much better than we are.
It's better not to don't look at the video. I remember there was a guy who had put a camera, one of those little, in his net, the goalie. And so I could see me on defense thinking, oh my God, I look like a pillar. Like this is, you never look at that, but keep flying out there. I applaud that. And may you skate a long, long time. And thanks for all the fun on television. You're really good at your job. It was a pleasure watching you over the years, and you brought a great spark to it every time. And so I'm glad to have had a chance to talk to you now, and all the best on this wonderful work you're doing with the foundations. Is there a number or a website where people should follow up if they want to be involved and donate?
It's easy. It's Bruce and Ann Oake Memorial Foundation.ca, or just go to bruceoake.ca, and that will take you to the Bruce Oake Recovery Center, and follow the links to donate. It's easily done. Even someone like me who's not technically adept can manage it. So.
All right, me too. Yeah. Thank you very much, Scott. Congrats on everything, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, Bill. I appreciate all the accolades I got in my retirement. If I'd known it was going to be this big a deal, I still would have retired. Well, my thanks again to Scott for all the work he's done through several Olympic Games, CFL football, especially on Hockey Night in Canada. And do check out the website for the Bruce and Ann Oake Memorial Foundation, helping men and women with recovery efforts in the greater Winnipeg area. Very worthy cause, and a model for other parts of Canada. Thanks as well to producer Phil Hong, also pretty good on his feet and in the moment. Kudos to BJ Del Conte, Paul Boudreau, the Crispy Critters, and piano man Steve Dudley for the music heard on this podcast. And finally, thanks to you, listener. If you like what you heard, please spread the word. I'm Bill Brio. Thanks for listening.